duct tape. Welcome to the revamped Player Profiler now, and Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Big Boned, FB, otherwise known as bigz, and I got Alex, Dynasty F Key. He's
Yes,
with
sir.
me. What's going on, man?
Glad to be back. Yeah, first time talking to you this year, man. I'm excited. Just been awesome football. Like the games we've been seeing, they've kind of been better than the last, each one of them. And even still got some college playoffs going on right now. So,
Yes.
exciting times.
Yeah, and with the college playoffs come some breaking news. Nicholas Singleton and Drew Aller have announced that they are returning to school for 2025. Now, you viewers might notice that in the thumbnail, I have Travion Henderson, Ohio State running back, and Nicholas Singleton, and there's a through line there. And that is both of those guys would definitely be within the top 5 of their junior or first time senior draft class coming out, but both elected to go back to school in running back rooms that have another dude who could be a bell cow. Last year, Travion Henderson announced after Quinshon Judkins had announced transferring from Ole Miss to Ohio State. Travion decided that he'd go back to Ohio State this year. With Katron Allen in the backfield too, Nicholas Singleton, who could have come out and been a top 5 running back, he goes back. So, number one, what do we do about all this NIL money? And number two, should we wait until March to do our running back rookie rankings? Because I start doing them right around the end of the season, and this is 2 years in a row that my number 1 running back went back and my number 3 running back went back.
Yeah, bigz, man, it hurts. I had just dropped the video of film breakdown on Nick Singleton, so you hate to see it, but like you said, Travion Henderson, he went back last year, and now he's in the national championship game, and I definitely would say his stock is rising. So for him, it was a good idea for his draft stock, and he probably got the bag. I guess the answer is pay running backs more in the NFL, and they'll actually come out into the NFL. But yeah, man, this class still has some talent. All right, I'm not as bummed as I was in some of those older classes. Like when Henderson left last year, I mean, we saw how this past class turned out, and it was basically Bucky Irving, Tyron Tracy as the main guys. Like I would have loved to have a Travion Henderson last year. So hopefully this class can still support itself. There's still a lot of guys to be excited about. Oh, lost bigz. All right. Man, because I was really excited to show some of my trophies. We'll pull up some of those here in a little bit. Bigz and I were looking at some, some different type of end of league trophies and things like that. And I've got a Jordan League and wanted to bust out some of those. Let's see if we get Bigz back. Looks like he's trying. So hey, in the chat, guys, let me know who you think's going to win the national championship game. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame looked pretty good on the other end as well. Just to be honest, Jeremiah Love, that guy kind of got limited for the most part, but still had some big plays when needed. I think they had a Greathouse as a receiver over there who's playing pretty well, and I think a pretty good comeback from Riley Leonard. He kind of was not looking too great early, and the points have been kind of hard to come by, but they did what they need to do, made a nice little push there at the end, and shout out to those guys, because I think even though they're going to be heavily favored to lose this game, they're still going to have a shot. All right. I don't think it's completely over. If they can kind of clamp down on defense early, keep it a close game, I think Notre Dame's got a shot. And shout out to some of my friends. I got some friends that are going to be on their way out to that game as well. So that's going to be really fun. And also, I think Anand Naduri, he's been to like every one of these Ohio State games, kind of every step of the way. So shout out to him too. This could be like a dream come true if you get this dub here. And I think they get it done. I believe they're favored a few points there. So it's just hard to imagine with all that talent. I'm not going to put it all on NIL, but that team is loaded. And really, Jeremiah Smith, he got held down in that game against Texas. Didn't have a big game or anything like that. So if they can get him activated, then there's actually a shot. You never know. He might be able to just win the game on his back. And that's just so scary for a lot of these teams to have a guy like that so young with the ability to crush. And you're going to have to face him at least 2 more seasons. So, gonna have to watch out for that. I think it's that's gonna be my pick for now. But really good playoffs this season, and with Penn State, those guys returning. I mean, the receivers had 0 receptions. Only Tyler Warren had catches. I think he had 9 catches, and the receivers had 0. So it was the tight end and the running backs. The running backs are returning, the quarterbacks are returning, but Tyler Warren is not returning. So y'all are gonna have to find some receivers if you actually want to make coming back worth it. But hopefully your draft stock gets improved. Good luck to those fellas. And yeah, this weekend we've got some NFL playoffs as well that just went down. Last night we just had pretty good upset, I would say. Uh, what's going on, Biggs?
Not much. I didn't hear anything that you said for like the last 3 minutes. So if you could just repeat everything.
You're joking, bro.
how, how many of the comments have we gotten to so far?
No. You're good, man. I was just
Okay.
talking about the rest of the this game, or the playoff matchup that we're about to see here. So that's kind of what I covered while you're gone. Unless I was gone and you're in, I don't know. But
No. So
I didn't do any of the comments though.
let's go back. Let's go back. Where are your now that Singleton is gone? Ashton Genty is absolutely the RB1 in this class. I'm looking at Travion Henderson as number 2, and I had Nicholas Singleton and Caleb Johnson kind of de facto 3-4, like going back and forth. Where do you see the running back class? And after Genty, how quickly in your rookie drafts are you drafting a running back?
Well, I still like Amari Hampton. That was I didn't have Singleton there. I mean, I think I used to a couple of years ago. I thought he was going to be that guy in the class, but yeah, Hampton's still a guy I like in that spot. I'm basically weighing in at least one league. Do I go McMillan, or because it's just not as deep of a receiver class, and just take some of these running backs later? But I'm definitely most likely right now to take McMillan as that second non-quarterback, and then I think I'm going right back to Amari and Hampton after that, unless it's tight end premium. Tyler Warren declared yesterday, so that's a guy that I'm interested in like
I already got him in bed.
1.75. There you go. Yeah, like 1.75, 2.0. I think, I guess since I was glitched out, basically I was saying that it's just crazy how Penn State, 9 catches for Tyler Warren, 0 for the wide receivers. And I'm just like, why are the running backs returning if you're not going to have any receiving game? Like, do you actually think you're getting to the national championship game after that? So, yeah, pretty crazy.
I don't know. Maybe Jahan Dotson has a year of eligibility left.
Oh,
So I failed to think of Omari and Hampton. He at one point last year, I feel like I had Travion 1 and Omari and Hampton 2 as the current running backs. Maybe Braylon Allen was 1, then Travion Henderson, whatever. But I do like your idea of grabbing a wide receiver because there's one thing that we learned from the 2024 rookie draft, and that is there are a ton of running backs, and the deeper the class is, the more spread around the league they get, and the less likely they are to actually like come out as rookies and be great. Now, Gentee may be that guy, but you look at Blake Corum, you look at the whole stash of the 2024 class, Braylon Allen, who likely could have been a bell cow for, like, say, Dallas, winds up behind Breece Hall. Audric Estime showed that he is the best running back on the Denver Broncos, but it took until the playoffs for them to start giving him run. Blake Corum is buried. Kamani Vidal, one of those guys who has like a ton of upside, buried. Jalen Wright, buried. Trey Benson, buried. So what happens if we get into this running back class in 2025, draft wide receivers in the first round again, find our wide receivers, even wide receiver 3, 4, and 5 in this class are productive immediately, and start taking running backs in the second and third round?
Yeah, that's the problem is I basically just Ted McMillan because I'm not sure about Travis Hunter's situation. So I already have done some film on Burden. I'm not the film guy, right? Like, I'm not the guru is all I'm saying, but I just don't know fantasy points production wise if I'm going to get enough out of Burden to justify taking him over anyone else at that spot. Like, literally, I'll take almost anyone over him.
He reminds me of Deebo Samuel / Xavier Legette.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those things where I want to just make a bet, a gamble, like literally gamble. Okay, this is actually going to be a good running back class, and it's based on some information, not just out of nothing. But at the same time, I'm not going to just be scared that because the last class sucked, this class is going to suck, and I'm going to get burned in the same way where I have like only Tyron Tracy and Bucky Irving to use at all, other than like Garindo here and there.
Right.
So for me, I'm willing to believe in Caleb Johnson. I'm doing film on him tomorrow or Thursday, and Omari and Hampton. I've seen them already, but like put it out there for the people.
Right.
And been looking at a lot of other guys. Sucks that I wasted my time doing that for Nick Singleton already. But anyway, there's still some guys, man.
Right.
There's some talent, and it's just about fit, and also there's enough need where if we get lucky in one of the, let's just say, quote unquote, like bad or like running backs that are down your board, like what if the 10th running back's the one that goes to Dallas? Like that would be awesome if they don't go Gentee and they take a late guy, because last year everyone assumed it was going to be Dallas taking a running back, but they didn't. But if it was this class, maybe they take one late, and even if it was Ray Davis or somebody who went to there, that would have been a guy that would have been usable, is what my point is. So we might get lucky with some opportunity, just because I see a lot of vacancies, because we just saw the change of the guard at the quarterback position from all the old heads to the new heads. I think the same thing's happening with running back. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I'm not too concerned. So I basically just want Tet, though. That's the problem. I want Tet and Tyler Warren, and I'm excited about the running backs because I've been playing 0RB for so long that like now I'm like, all right, let me get somebody.
Well, and with the class last year and this year, there are so many running backs in the NFL. So who's going to have jobs? And the touches are going to get spread around unless you have Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, even James Conner to a certain extent. There aren't a whole lot of guys who are the premier running back that's going to get 60% of the touches and absolute. So Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, your top 5.
Well, what about Chase Brown? Because he was doing exactly what you're saying, but we can say it because Moss was injured, but he was doing it.
But that Cincinnati organization, what if they bring in another guy and split carries?
Sure.
Chase Brown split carries last year. They tried to make him split carries this year. We've known in the fantasy community for 2 years what Chase Brown is, but the Cincinnati Bengals have tried to split carries for 2 seasons.
Slides in the chat is feeling disrespected. He's a Packers fan. Yeah, you're right though. Josh Jacobs for sure.
You
I
know,
think
you
there's some guys like Mixon was that for a little while. He just dropped off. Taylor ended the season like that.
yeah.
So there are some guys that
So say you take the top 10. That still leaves 22 teams that are running back by committee. The new trend in running backs is not paying them a whole lot and not using them a whole lot, or spreading out the touches, whatever. Um, but it feels like we still are in an era where wide receivers can come out and surprise us.
oh yeah.
They can produce immediately, even guys who are, ranked in the back 5 of the top 10. Slip and slides, that I love Josh Jacobs. Like, there's no
Yeah.
um, but I I just feel like we're in an era where first round rookie running backs, it's hard to, like, unless it's Ashton Genty this year, it's hard to really, like, peg one and say, okay, um, he's going to be the dude, right?
Well, the only reason I keep talking about Hampton is because I like the pass catching, like over 30 catches. That's big for running backs. I think the benchmark's like 20 to at least know that they can catch, but to be used in that facet, 300 yards receiving, plenty of rushing yards over 1500s. I like what he can do. And, with Genty, there's still a level of competition. I know that's BS in theory, but it's a different, Boise State's playing some different teams out there, and we did see him against Penn State, who we just saw Penn State look bad, but then against Genty, he was able to limit him to his
Right.
lowest yard total of the season, which still happened to be 100 yards. But
Sure. Yeah, the volume 3.5
yeah,
yards per
30,
carry.
30 attempts for him, so they, there's a chance where it's not just about is Genty the main guy, like, or is Genty the only guy? I mean, I think Genty might not even end up being the best guy, is what I'm trying to say. I just love the explosiveness. I've done Genty's tape. He looks amazing. It's just hard to know for sure what that level of competition is going to be like. And I know with that breakout finder, there's an aspect of that can show how that kind of factors into some things. But we're watching eye test. Guy looks good. And my real question for you, man, like, strategy wise, since it's kind of like based on strategy show, right? Like, would you just say the overall narrative of there are no workhorse running backs, is that dead? Because you were talking about the era a second ago, but I feel like if we asked people last offseason how many workhorse running backs, the number would have maybe been 5. It sounded like we just got to like 10, and maybe potentially more. And how do you feel about that?
So I've always been kind of the mind that there are more workhouse running backs than we think there are. Um, and I think, like, just judging by this year and the number of guys who led in touches, some of those situations, though, like Jahmyr Gibbs for one, right? If David Montgomery, everybody's like hot on what Gibbs did this year, but if Montgomery didn't get hurt, his numbers wouldn't have put him where he was at.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
One situation that you can look at and absolutely, like, put a pin in is Bijan Robinson. So going
Sorry, Montgomery's coming back this weekend as well, which is kind of
right.
crazy.
But with Bijan, the situation with Bijan, so, like, going into his rookie season, I had a lot of Algier shares, and I was, like, kind of upset that Bijan was drafted by the Falcons and not in a position where in most of my dynasty leagues I was going to be able to draft him. So doing the analysis going into 2024 on Bijan, I had him at a specific number of carries and a specific number of receptions, but increased with better quarterback play. That played out. The quarterback play was better. He had just about as many receptions, but it was on fewer targets. But the thing that got me was that he had 60 more carries than he had the year before, and Algier had 60 fewer carries than he had the year before. So it's obvious, and because of my not anticipating that, I had Bijan Robinson as my RB6 in dynasty drafts. Based on what the workload was over the course of the season, the new Atlanta coaching staff wanted to split carries less than Arthur Smith did, which is great for Bijan Robinson owners. But it increases his value because now Algier is less of a worry. But there are a lot of situations like that where it's, zero RB. I think is we're getting to the point where there are enough guys that hero RB is the way to go. Draft a running back in the first round still, as long as it's in the back five of the 5 through 12 in a startup draft, and then wait, because you just at a certain point in the draft you just load up on all the running backs that you can, because somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get a job, somebody's going to break out, and that's not necessarily the case as much at the other positions. So
yeah, and last year you said load up with those second rounders, so hopefully y'all did.
Yeah. Now the other position that I want to talk about real quick is quarterback, and we've got some chat to get to too. But this quarterback class does not look good. Now there are some Twitter rumblings that Jackson Dart might wind up being the number one quarterback drafted. Even though it's been like Shedeur Sanders' name has been out there, Cam Ward's name has overcome. And then Jackson Dart is starting to get into the conversation. Jackson Dart is somebody that I've tracked, and I like his rushing upside. I like his size. I feel like if he lands in the right spot and he's got a quarterback guru that can bring him along correctly, he could be a good asset. The problem is I don't see a guy who is going to step in and turn the team around. There's no Jaden Daniels in this draft. There's no Drake May in this draft. I mean, Cam Ward might be able to step in and maybe replicate what Caleb Williams did. I still see a lot of film that I really don't like in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, who are, by default, the top two quarterbacks in this class. I see a lot of 2022 and 2023 Bo Nix and Michael Penix in these guys. Stuff that still needs to be worked on. So in the first round of the rookie draft, we tend to there usually are 2 or 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks, and based on the career-long value of dynasty quarterbacks, they hold their value for a long time. What are your thoughts on just the top 3 of this quarterback class? Because I don't even see anybody after that.
Well, Jackson Dart, I saw a little bit of his tape because my favorite wide receiver is Trey Harris in this class. So that's going to be my guy that I'm going to have to just keep watching, because I got to make sure it's right if I'm going to really put the flag down. But Trey didn't even play all the games this season and put up a ton of yards, was one of the top yardage guys in the class. And Dart had a lot to do with that. I feel like they had a good connection, so I don't know if he's gonna have to he has to keep working on that in off season with whatever receiver he gets in the NFL, or if he just got that talent. But I don't know. I thought he looked pretty good. Shedeur, he will scramble, but he's not fast. I don't think he's fast.
Right.
So it's like I don't think that's what. I think he's going to have to do it with his arm, and I think he can. I love his clutch ability. So it's I think what matters for fantasy is that they're going to be starters. I think that is definitely likely. I just don't want to have a bust pick. You know what I mean? For NFL, it's a little different. You want someone who can help you win the Super Bowl, right? But you said that Bo Nix. Well, Bo Nix kind of overproduced. If they were doing what Bo Nix is doing, I'm happy.
Right.
But yeah, give me. Yes, but that's what you think of, right? If I'm getting that level of play, get 18 points a game, you're all right, I didn't completely bust on that pick from Shedeur or Cam Ward, but no one's expecting them to be having a ton of rushing yards. Bo Nix has way more than I expected. So that's not what I'm going to expect, but I have seen Shedeur run. I've watched him do it. It's just I'm worried about the guy getting destroyed out there.
You know what Bo Nix turned into in his rookie season? Derek Carr with 400 yards rushing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I almost used Carr's name to just say, as long as I know I'm getting guys who's going to be starting for years, then I'm feeling okay. I'm not going to pick them with my number one slot. But Yeah, I'm good with this. It's not a great class or anything, but if on the back of a record-breaking 6 first-round pick quarterback draft class, if you're telling me 9 are first rounders in a 2-year span, and of course they're not all going to hit, but out of that last class so far, only JJ McCarthy hasn't done anything.
Right.
So it could be a decent hit rate over the course of these 2 seasons, and just take your running backs now because we didn't get them last year. It all balances out.
So at this point, the consensus is basically Cam Ward 1, Shador Sanders 2, Jackson Dart 3, and then to borrow from Moneyball, 60 feet of shit. And
Oh yeah,
and then whoever the next guy is. Hypothetical scenario. Dallas hires Deion Sanders as the head coach, trades Dak Prescott to the Las Vegas Raiders, and then drafts Shador Sanders with their first round pick. What do you do with Shador? Does he jump to the number 1?
yeah. Because I'm playing fantasy football, and that would be awesome. That would be so much fun. And he's like, the dad's gonna call the son's number all the time. So, so it's just like, what? Like, I want to be a part of that. I'm like mad that I didn't in C2C get on these guys. Like, I just let Travis Hunter fall because I didn't know what position he was gonna play in the NFL, and like Shador, like, oh, is this real? They're coming out of HBCUs. Like, is this gonna stick? Like, these guys have proven to be good every step of the way and kind of addressed every single challenge, no matter what it is. It's like they still have a baseline level of being able to play. So I'm good with them. You put them around CeeDee Lamb. They never have a problem at tight end. They'll figure out running back. I almost want to guarantee it. So they just need one more receiver, in my opinion. And I just think he can do whatever, fantasy-wise, whatever Dak was doing this past season for sure.
Sure. Speaking of Travis Hunter, I feel like it depends on his situation. I think that if he goes to a team that's defense heavy, that has a lot of cornerbacks in house, there should be some NFL teams out there, especially in the top 5, that feel like they're safe at the cornerback position and draft him and just play him as a wide receiver primarily. I would love for him to be a two-way guy just as much as possible.
I would love it, dude.
But, I think his upside should come from the wide receiver position, not necessarily the cornerback position. But, time will tell.
As long as
Depends on
they
his
count,
hands.
as long as they count those pick sixes, I'm good.
Right.
Hey, I was actually on Fizzle Dollar show this morning, the cook up, and appreciate you having me on there. It was pretty dope. He just said he actually was talking about this earlier, and he was saying what he said here in the chat, that basically they did the father son thing, and now it's time for Shador to go out there and cook on his own. So
Let the baby bird fly from the nest. All right, let's get to some of this chat real quick. We got Theo Darling leading it off. Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, Bucky Irving, or Rashee Rice. 16-team Superflex. My only players are May, Neighbors, and the 101. Thinking of tanking for Arch. Well, tanking and you're in a rebuild. So tank for Arch. That's good. That's probably.
I just don't know that he comes out. I don't know that he comes out this year, but it looks like a long-term rebuild, honestly, if that's all you got.
Yeah. So Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, Bucky Irving, or Rashee Rice. I feel like at this point you're holding on to Bucky Irving, and I don't know if those you said those are your only players.
Is this a trade? I'm trying to figure. Let me see.
Yeah, I feel like Bucky Irving is the guy to own there, and then maybe Bryce Young, because I think Bryce Young's carryover value is going to be pretty good. And JJ McCarthy depends a whole lot on what the Vikings do with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had a terrible game last night. Justin Herbert had a worse game a couple days ago. And one of the things about the Sam Darnold game is that Rams defense that we saw absolutely destroy San Francisco sacked him 9 times. Now, Brett Coleman put out a stat that there were 25 pressures. 11 of those were less than 2.5 seconds. So Sam was holding on to the ball a little bit too long, but that doesn't mean that Kevin O'Connell doesn't feel like it would be a better idea to tag him and build that line than try and move on and run with JJ McCarthy next year. So that's going to have a lot to do with it. But I think Bucky at this point, you saw his usage in the playoff game. It's time for Rachaad White to move on to another organization because Tampa Bay doesn't think he's the answer.
Now, you love to see it, though. You love to see someone just immediately be good and just take the job. It doesn't always happen like this, but I love to see it.
Yeah. All right. Slip and slide. Notre Dame held Penn State to 135 passing yards and committed 2 turnovers. So there may be a chance that they limit Jeremiah Smith like Texas did. Yeah. One of the things about Notre Dame, I tweeted 2 Notre Dame games ago. I think it was the first round of the playoffs. I play a lot of IDP, and I'm going to keep my eye on every one of the Notre Dame front 7 because those dudes are coached well. They're ball seekers. They are very, very smart, and they play so fast. And I was very, very impressed. I think all 7 of those guys have a chance to do something in the NFL. So in IDP leagues, I'm watching them very closely. Speaking of which, you mentioned C2C earlier, and we talked about Amari and Hampton. There's a dude that you should all, because hey, Dynasty is all year long, but so is Campus to Canton and Devy leagues and college leagues. The guy to look for this year in your draft is Jordan Louis, North Carolina running back. He was a freshman last year. I drafted him in every C2C league that I have, and he's going to ultimately be the guy that takes over for Hampton. And kid is good. Jordan Louis, Louie. Keep an eye out for that guy.
Nice. Appreciate the pro tip.
Yep. All right. We got, yes, Josh Jacobs. I missed. Sorry. With your one-on-one, you're on the same page, leaning McMillan over Genty. I think at this point that's wise. You got to love Tet, first of all. And there are a lot of wide receivers, but there are a ton of running backs. And one of the benefits that we have over the course of the next 4 months is that we will be ranking guys, but the draft is going to change everything. Once the 25 NFL draft happens, everything is going to shuffle around and guys are going to like rise and fall in terms of draft stock. You saw it from Bucky Irving last year. Everybody through March had him as like, oh, he's so good. And then he had his combine numbers and everybody went, oh, he's so bad. And then he got drafted by the Buccaneers. Oh, he's behind Rachaad White and he's got a bad combine and blah, blah, blah. So he was a total value this year. So there are going to be guys like that who their combine doesn't go well. They get drafted behind Joe Mixon in Houston. And then suddenly weeks 6 through 18, they are the lead back and winning you fantasy leagues. All right. I may prefer trading the 101 to the team with the 102 for more value. Absolutely. As we know from friend of player profiler Chalk, who wrote The Art of Dynasty, especially if you're in a startup draft, drafting back is the way to go. And even in rookie drafts, drafting back just increases the value of every pick that you have. And I mean, it's you want to kind of like use the Jimmy Johnson draft pick value chart. There's one that's out there for Dynasty that I like to use. But making sure that you get the same number of points back, just keep dropping back to grab the guy you like and keep stacking up picks. That's absolutely the way to go. And we'll probably have a show coming up to the draft about trading in the draft, because we know that the highest value for picks is on draft day, is in your draft.
Yeah. There's
no other time of the year that your draft picks are as valuable as in the middle of your draft. All right. and fizzled dollars. Raiders are too far in the draft, and it's time for Dion to coach on Shedeur to play. Yes. Dad and son time is over. It's man time now. Right. But like, don't let facts get in the way of the narrative, buddy. We got to have something to talk about. Dion chatting with Jerry. Are they going to trade?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell my co-host. I was like, some of this is just clickbait. Like, I'm kind of annoyed to have to talk about this, but they're like, yeah, but we probably should. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
And so you know how I felt about 3 years of Tom Brady to the Raiders rumors. Like, just so tired of it because it wasn't ever going to happen. And I knew that. And it was so we just have these off seasons where it's like, is Brady going to be a Raider? And no. And even into last year, is Brady going to come out of retirement and coach the Raiders to the playoffs? No, stop. It's just like, and there's a beat writer that I follow, and I often contemplate unfollowing, but this beat writer I follow, he'll hear like there'll be something out there like say the Dion is talking to Jerry, and every tweet that he starts with breaking, and it's like, dude, you're not breaking anything. You're just talking about the thing that everybody else is talking about. All right. And as far as Rashad and Bucky, yes, Sean Tucker waiting room. All right. Let's talk about some stocks at the moment. Some trades that have been happening because you guys should be continuing to be active even right now.
And trades or leagues are rolling over to the new season. I'm actually in a league with Slip and Slides, and we are finally switching over from my fantasy football league to Sleeper. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
I'll have one more league on my fantasy league, and we'll figure that out at some point.
All right. So the number one drafted asset in Dynasty in the last 30 days is Michael Penix. All right. So let's look at some Penix trades. A lot of that has to do with the position turnover, the starting job turnover. It's been a couple weeks. Let's see if we can find some juicy ones. 2025 first for Penix and a 2027 first.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, I mean, I'll take the Penix side.
Me too, because that's Penix plus Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, I'm like, you're first on both sides, but one's getting quarterback.
Right. There's not a whole Cole Kmet and a 25 first for Penix and Tyreek.
We got to take the Penix and Tyreek. Quarterback is kind of worth it anyway.
Yeah,
I'm not factoring in Cole Kmet at all, to be honest.
Aiden O'Connell, Michael Penix, and Mac Jones for Rashee Rice, Jonathan Mingo, and a 26 fourth.
So it's Rice versus Penix. It's just an MCL for what it's worth. He's definitely supposed to play week 1, Rice that is. But you got to go quarterback, I think, in that spot. I don't know. Rice was great. Worthy's coming along. That's definitely close. If you've already got your quarterback, I'm kind of okay getting Rice there. If whoever, I think it was Theo in the chat, like the reason I'm okay with not just taking a quarterback, and going with the Bucky in that spot is because like at that point, that you want a different quarterback and you're only starting 2. So you're starting May and Arch and you're good. So if you got your quarterback situated, you do need to fill out those other spots. So I'm nervous on that one. I'm gonna scaredly take Rice.
Yeah, I'm scared if somehow the Chiefs manage to win this Super Bowl, make it 3 in a row, and then come out next year with a healthy Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and I'm gonna be so mad. This one's a no-brainer. Michael Penix for Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas.
That's hilarious.
That's Penix. Like,
yeah, Penix.
I broke my finger hitting the accept button. All right. Michael Penix, J.K. Dobbins, Alec Pierce, Jamison Williams, a 25 third and a 25 second for Jared Goff and Chase Brown. Now, this was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So I feel like this is like trying to
yeah.
get in to like this is trying to set up for a championship.
That's why there's so many extra picks on there, I guess. But yeah, I would still do the Chase Brown and Goff side. You got your starting quarterback, and Brown had been basically elite, and I just don't see them signing a running back. As I was basically trying to allude to earlier, I think Brown's going to stick for at least another season.
If it's today, now I would have made that trade to get the Jared Goff and Chase Brown for the championship. If that's today, I'm taking the Penix side because you're getting Penix. I really like Alec Pierce. He's got
You proved me
he's
wrong.
got
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Jameson Williams is. I said on another show, Jameson Williams is my number one target for 2025. I want to acquire him everywhere, and then a 25 third and a 26 second. I can do a lot with draft picks, like taking Jalen McMillan in the fourth, things like that. Um,
I like it.
all right, now let's talk about one more guy. Well, okay, let's talk about two more guys. First is George Pickens. There's a stat that came out that throws over 20 yards this season. Russell Wilson was first in a whole bunch of different categories. Let me see if I can find it.
And
He
yeah,
was
that
first in
speaks
completion
his
rate.
game.
This is passes thrown 20 plus yards downfield, including the playoffs. First in completion rate, first in yards per attempt, and first in passer rating. And we know that George Pickens is the deep, just go down and we know Russell Wilson is I hope he's down there kind of quarterback. And we know that George Pickens is the guy that you hope is down there kind of receiver. How do we feel about George Pickens? Is his attitude kind of making everything sour at this point, or do we still love his talent?
Man, I still like the talent. And lucky for Russ to have that type of player because it did fit pretty well. And even Calvin Austin is the same, like it was good for Russ as well. So, thinking of it being Justin Fields is really the main reason I'm worried. Because before the season started, was saying this is going to be great. Russell Wilson throwing to George Pickens because of that Tyler Lockett kind of corollary, like the way they had that connection. I saw that. But we started the season with it being Justin Fields. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm wrong. And then it ended up happening. I just don't think that's going to happen. I just saw a report today that the Steelers are looking into re-signing Justin Fields before like early is what I'm like early before it gets too deep into the off season. So if that happens, I'm not excited about George Pickens because any type of signing would have to be 3 years, probably at a minimum, I would think.
Right.
And that is the brutal, but maybe he gets on a bet off the Steelers at some point because he's too much of a headache. They're always willing to trade their receivers away before it becomes too much of a headache historically. I like the talent. The guy can catch, can play, but he does get in his own way sometimes. But I'm mainly worried about Justin Fields, to be honest. So I would be trying to sell just because I think I can still get good value and similar production.
One of the things that I've enjoyed over the course of Pickens' career is, especially in Dynasty, if you have him, he's the kind of guy that you don't want to give up on his talent and his upside, but you also don't have him in a position where you're relying on him. So there are some games where you're like, let me go and run out some George Pickens and he'll have some games, but you have a couple other wide receivers ahead of him on your roster. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't think he's anybody's wide receiver 1 or 2. So it doesn't hurt to hang on to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, a guy that does hurt to hang on to, Jalen Waddle. Looking over some stuff, we got Jalen Waddle straight up for Devontae Adams.
Oh man, yeah, those got to be playoff trades though.
I'm on the Adams side on that one. Jalen Waddle
Okay.
straight up for Kyler Murray.
Okay, well, the Kyler Murray, but okay.
Okay, last guy. Let's talk about Jalen McMillan.
Well, wait, yeah, Waddle, man. Wait, hold on. Like,
Okay,
is Are people just completely giving up on him? Like, the problem is Chev Waddle denier in the building. Yeah. Man, the problem is Tua can't stay healthy, and no other quarterback has been able to run that offense. But there's still a chance. I know Waddle already had re-signed a contract somewhere. I mean, one of the off seasons last or the one before, but still, there's a chance he gets out of there at some point. He's still pretty young, and Tyreek Hill wants to get traded. I mean, what are we talking about? Waddle's the wide receiver 1 in Miami next year, so I'm keeping
Is he
Waddle.
though?
Who?
Are you
Yes,
sure about
yes,
that?
yes. And shout out to you for telling people to pick up Malik Washington, because he's gonna be the wide receiver too. Because Tyreek's gonna be gone, and whatever the person they add, unless it's T Higgins, I'm Waddle is about to get a huge opportunity. I
Uh,
think you should. I think you should consider that. Like,
Are you dismissing River Craycraft the way that I
oh
dismissed
my,
Josh Jacobs?
uh, hey, John, who had a career year. I think Waddle's
Yes.
got a career year ahead of him as well.
Yeah, John back. Going into the season, I pegged Johnu in a lot of areas based on the fact that he had never been the lone guy in a tight end room. And I knew at some point that once he got acclimated, it was game over. It was Johnu's season, and it happened. So that was my dog model favors Malik over Waddle. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I gave up on Waddle a couple years ago, so I
All
haven't
right.
had
Well,
to.
I'm here. I'm here to keep the hope alive.
I haven't dealt with him in a while. And then finally, Jalen McMillan, dude played himself into a job. We don't know when Chris Godwin's coming back. We don't know how long Mike Evans is going to last. Is his hamstring? He's an older man. He's in his mid-30s, and we know soft tissue injuries in plus 30 people tend to linger. They don't really ever heal up. So you're going to have games where he's going to re-aggravate his hamstring injury on a dive in the end zone at some point. I've always maintained that we don't know when Mike Evans is going to finally not have 1,000-yard year, but I'm not going to be the one to bet on that happening. So I'm going to continue as if he's going to be another 1,000-yard receiver next year. However, Jalen McMillan, the second half of the season, once he started getting the target share that he so rightly deserved from the beginning, some analysis has shown that he's absolutely in the wide receiver three conversation in Dynasty. If you spent a 4th-round pick to grab him last year because everybody had Jalen Polk over him, Javon Baker, the list is endless of guys who were ranked ahead of Jalen McMillan. Is he a target for you now? Are you willing to pay the premium that it'll take to get him if you didn't get him at the discount last year?
Yes, there's still a little uncertainty if Godwin would come back. That is in people's mind when they're trying to value the situation. And ultimately, I would basically bet on Evans getting that 1,000, because this year he'll be trying to break the record this next season coming up, instead of just being tied. So I think they're going to force it like they forced it this year. And he missed games this year, which is why they were forcing it so much heavy at the end.
Right.
So everything you said kind of lines up for this 2025 being a year where, okay, maybe McMillan's not the one, but I think after that, it's all teed up for McMillan to have a chance to be a one. And even if he can't be a 1-1 for real, he can be a strong wide receiver too, if things goes right. If he can just do like the Godwin role or something like that. So pay up. What that looks like, we should definitely look at the Dynasty Daddy, but trade database there. But I would say, with if we're looking at players now that the season's over and we're thinking there's probably a running back in that 2 to 2.4 range, something around there I'm willing to give. I don't think it's necessary to give the first, but if you just want the production and confidence in future production, he's actually probably worth like 110 I would think.
So he's going straight up for a second rounder. I have one where he's going for a second and a third.
Okay.
I have one where he's going straight up for Demarcus Robinson. uh,
Okay.
that's the most recent trade. Straight up for Rashad White, and then Jalen and Puka for CD.
Yeah. Okay. So Jalen Puka for CD. Yeah. I mean, that's probably Puka Jalen's side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two producers. Yeah, and yeah, he's just in a good spot, man. I think it just seems teed up, and I like Baker at this point. Now I've got confidence in the quarterback. It's like with all the young quarterbacks from this year, like Lad McConkey. He had a good quarterback that really helped a lot to
Yeah.
be good, and you got to put Baker in that conversation. Oh, sorry,
Brock Bowers,
Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. Okay, I'm just saying. I guess it works for different people, but McMillan, he got the opportunity. Just a touchdown in the last 5 games in a row.
Right.
You know,
now,
yeah,
touchdowns aren't sticky, but it's funny how we can get take lock on specific players, and we think one thing about one player, and we think something different in the same realm of another player. So we were discussing the value of Brian Thomas Jr. the other day on a different show. And moving forward, I was looking at his touchdown numbers and the fact that most of his ranking in fantasy as a fantasy finisher in 2024 hinged on his touchdowns. He had more touchdowns than Malik. Malik had more targets, more catches. So to me, it looks like Malik is going to sustain his production and have some positive regression on the touchdown front. Whereas Brian Thomas Jr. is going to basically stay fairly static with his target share and have the possibility of negative regression in his touchdowns. Well, and then I saw a stat about Jalen McMillan and how touchdown heavy he was, with finishing with 8 touchdowns and I want to say about 450 yards. And in my brain, I went, he's it's different. It's not any different, Brendan. It's the same for Brian Thomas Jr. and Jalen McMillan. They're likely to hover around the same touchdown rate, if not fewer. And the only thing that I see is some increase in total targets and yards coming from McMillan. But maybe that touchdown rate was an outlier.
Yeah, both of them did spike after the injuries to the guys in front of them, the Godwins and the Evan Ingram / Christian Kirk and all that. So yeah, you could see it bouncing back in the other way. But gotta say, Brian Thomas Jr. did have the most yards of those guys. So
yeah, and that was one thing that we didn't see coming out in his college metrics was yards after catch.
Yeah,
he absolutely put it together, and he would have had even more touchdowns. He had like at least two or three end zone drops where it wasn't a bad throw. It was like it actually hit off his hands and he dropped it. He could have had 3 more touchdowns. One of the things so in my convincing myself that it's fine for McMillan, even after I had talked myself out of Brian Thomas Jr., the touchdowns for McMillan signal that going forward, he's going to be an end zone target, a red zone target of Baker Mayfield, and he should be able to score a lot of touchdowns. Now, I have to stay consistent, so now I am bumping Brian Thomas Jr. up.
Yeah, there we go. He's back
in. I didn't hate him. He was one of my fantasy MVPs. So, all right.
Yeah, man. No, that's a great talking point though, because it's just one of those things where even Malik Neighbors, you could argue, no, the other receivers were not injured, but he was the only guy. Brian Thomas Jr. was the only guy. Yeah, McMillan has had Evans, but it's just one of those things where McConkey, you could argue he was the only guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're gonna see some kind of regression if they add somebody. In theory, we'll see.
I think Quentin Johnston needs to go back to the
Oh
stickum
God.
days, like the old Raiders.
Oh, rough.
All right, let's hear from Matt and get out of here.
Oh, I see all this mock draft information out there. Oh, this mock, that mock. Hey, what about a real actual fantasy game? The Flex 4 game on Fast Draft, draftfaster.com, is open. You draft 6 running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. The top 4 enter your lineup every week. It's that easy. It's that simple. Drafts take 5 minutes. There's a $50,000 prize pool. It's $15,000 to first. It's just a $5 entry. And the best part, no rake. No rake whatsoever on Fast Draft, the first 2025 Best Ball contest to open in the world is ready for you to draft up to 150 teams. Draftfaster.com, draftfaster.com. Start playing Best Ball for real.
All right, in the playoff Super Slam, I'm currently ranked 220th out of 277.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's because the only guy that I have that played this week was Derrick Henry. And it's
you picked okay. That was your strategy. See, let's just talk about this for our last few minutes because that's kind of the cool thing about these type of tournaments is you have to be willing to pick an upset if you want somebody to, if you want to get the max amount of games. If you pick the Commanders player who they upset the Bucks, so now you have an advantage over the field. If you pick the Texans, I believe were not favored against the Chargers, and like specifically, you would have had to probably pick Nico Collins and specifically Terry McLaurin in those situations. But yeah, if you get those guys, then that could end up being better than the Lions players or the Chiefs players, even if they do actually make it to the Super Bowl, those Lions and Chiefs, you know what I mean? So you might be able to get 4 games out of some where you can get 3 out of others. But obviously, if you pick the wrong one and they get eliminated, then you've got absolutely nothing. So is that the strategy you went with to just pick who you actually thought was going to be there in the Super Bowl?
Right. So I had Derrick Henry and a bunch of Lions. It didn't work out for me that well in Matthew Berry's guillotine playoff. I was in last place by 2 points because Puka Nacua and AJ Brown.
10 yards for AJ Brown.
I had Devontae Smith on my bench, and I had AJ Brown and Puka Nacua in, and I lost. I got eliminated based on 2 points.
Yeah.
But the Scott Fish one, I'm Scott Fish and I have the exact same score. But that one you get to repick your players. The other two were you have to pick them now, and that's who you get for the whole rest of the year or whole rest of the playoffs. But the Scott Fish one, that's you get to re-roster every week. So I'm in a pretty good spot.
So like the only one where I'm in some kind of money in just $10 right now. I have Jefferson and Evans who are already eliminated. Jefferson got me 26 points and Evans got me 38. So I'm now hoping that can even put a dent in someone getting 3 more games or 2 more games in them, which is kind of brutal. You kind of have to pick it just right if you're going to pull that off. Like I don't think you can thread the needle with that type of team because those are my captains too, or my top 2.
Right.
So it's just like I don't even have the juice. Like at least if I had maybe put Henry in my top spot or Amon-Ra or Gibbs, who I have on the same team. But
Henry scored 56 in the top spot, so that was right around like both of your guys.
Yeah, exactly. So it's already over for those teams. But I've got some other ones. I made basically a build for each. Basically each type of playoff team making it to the Super Bowl, sort of. I had at least a couple upsets, some chalk. So it's not over yet. We'll see.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. Lad McConkey will not regress.
No.
I got into an argument with Greinberg about that one. And Eckler and Flacco in a start 11 Superflex or the 308.
I'll go.
Chev, what is wrong with you? Why are you trolling the chat, buddy? Yeah. 308.
Yeah, Flacco's going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns. Go ahead and book it. No.
Wow, that'll be
No,
crazy.
I'll take the 308.
And what is that? Look at Chev's avatar.
Getting shredded. Maybe that's Nick Chubb or something. I don't know.
Those are Nick Chubb's thighs attached to Chev's body. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week, and we will talk about more stuff. Mostly, crap.
That was a real offer. Sorry to hear that,
Sometime.
Chev.
All right. Yeah, take the 308. Yeah, I love Lab McConkey. He had analytics coming out of college that absolutely matched his performance on the field. And if you are and so going into the season, preseason, I said he was going to be Justin Herbert's best friend. And then in the broadcast on Saturday, Sunday, whenever that playoff game was, whoever was the announcer called him Justin Herbert's friend. He's the friend receiver. And basically what it meant was he's going to get open all the time. So every time Herbert's in a little bit of trouble and he looks upfield, Justin Herbert Lad McConkey is going to be open. Similar to what Tyreek and Travis Kelce did with Kansas City. When Mahomes would scramble, he'd look up and he'd see one of those guys. Herbert, same thing. McConkey's going to be open whenever he wants to go to McConkey. He's also the best wide receiver in that room, and I don't see them drafting somebody who's going to be better than McConkey. They might draft another wide receiver that we all think he's good, but I don't think that guy's going to be as good as McConkey. He's the Chargers wide receiver one as far as target share. His target share is only going to increase over time. I don't see any regression from him.
Yeah, and shout out to Dustin Royer, one of our guys here, player profiler. And he had put out a graphic. Lab McConkey, number 1 explosive rating, number 2 in targets per route run, and number 3 in target rate versus man. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. And the versus man was one thing that we didn't know coming out of college because his numbers were lesser against man, but he was elite against zone. So he's a zone breaker. And if he's actually winning again in man coverage, it's over. Like he's the dude. All he needs is an off season to just like hang out with Hunter Renfrow, and he will be unstoppable.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.